Please welcome to the stage your support act for this evening. It's Mr. Tony Dunn.
All right, good evening, Leicester Square, in the heart of London's theatre district. How are you? It's nice to be out, Thursday night out. What a time to be alive. It's good to be here. I am your warm-up act this evening for Darren, so I'll be trying to get those laughing muscles loose, a few small and medium-sized laughs so you can cut loose with the bigger stuff in the second half. Some of you might have, booked expecting to see an extremely tall comedian, and he's coming out, but I am merely quite tall, so we're just working you up for that as well. It's nice to be here. I know the importance of a warm-up because I'm 41 now. It's tough. The other day I sneezed and I got a sharp pain in my hip. It's not falling apart. It's tough. Find out what sort of crowd we got in. Give me a cheer if you're younger than 41. Okay, energetic. And give me a cheer if you're older than 41. And that's pretty even. And just to fill it out, give me a cheer if you're exactly 41. Okay. My cohort, we could have gone to school together. It's nice. I'll tell you something about my 40s. Least favourite decade so far, by far. Not enjoying it, it's difficult, and I find it's weird, the conversations you have with your friends change as you get into your 40s. The other day I was talking to a friend and he's telling me he's struggling with a Viagra addiction. I said, is that a real problem? He said, well, yeah, a lot of people don't realise how hard it can be. There we go, that's as close as I'm getting to a pun this evening. Going to leave that to Darren, It's like my dad always said, you don't take your potato prints to a Picasso exhibition. I don't really know what he was talking about, but it might have been something to do with this. Another reason it's a tough time to be getting older is the NHS is on its knees. Do we have any of our NHS heroes in?
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Much appreciated. I became concerned about the NHS a few years ago. My wife and I were getting some fertility investigations done, and she got the clean bill of health. So it wasn't long before the cold finger of medical suspicion started pointing in the direction of my testicles. But that's fine. I thought I knew what was going to happen. I thought I was going to be sent to a room. They said it's time to give a sample. So I was like, no problem. I thought I was going to go into a nice, comfortably furnished room, wiped clean, presumably, but pleasant with some, charmingly vintage NHS pornography. And I thought, okay, I can live with that as an activity. But that's not what happens. Now, and I hate to be the one to break this to you, Leicester Square, but they have shut the masturbatoriums. Not a word about it, they just closed them down. Now what happens is, and this is 100% true, they give you a little vial and they say, you've got to produce a sample at home, working from home. Sign of the times. And they said then you got to tuck it in your armpit and get it to the clinic within 1 hour. And no one needs to be performing under that kind of pressure. I live in Lewisham, and the clinic was on Westminster Bridge. I looked at City Mapper. It said the fastest route was 58 minutes. It's not reasonable, and they shut the masturbatoriums without any fanfare. If you shut an A&E department, people protest outside. But I never got the chance. I would have protested outside the closing of a masturbatorium. I'd have had a placard that says, this masturbatorium is the lifeblood of this community. Because it is. And, I would have written to my MP, when are the wankers in government going to help the wankers in Lewisham? But anyway, long story short, I got this sample to the clinic, but unfortunately Lady Luck was not shining upon me and my wife. and now we have 2 kids. Any parents in? Yeah, I can hear your weariness. I relate to it. I've got two boys, 2 and 4, absolute savages. And I love those boys, but you got to be honest about this. There are drawbacks. For example, I hate every single aspect of my life. It's difficult, but I have noticed in parenting that the experience of being a dad is very different from the experience of being a mum. Because you go out, you don't really know what you're doing. I can be out in the supermarket with the boys, and they'll be melting down because I haven't allowed them some sort of biscuit or whatever, and I'm just standing there haplessly, not really knowing what to do, just trying to wait it out. And I see people looking at me thinking, look at this useless dad. He's pathetic, he doesn't know what to do in the situation, but at least he's trying. And I get that pity and I soak it up. It's like energy to me. I love it. But I know that my wife, in the same sort of situation, she can be out there and, same thing, the boys are melting down, and people will be looking at her and she can feel judgment. People saying, look at that shit mum. Can't control her kids. She should be ashamed of herself. And when I think about that difference between, the way the 2 genders are treated, I think that is fair. Because if you think about it, women have been doing hands-on parenting for thousands of years. There's all this kind of tacit knowledge and understanding that's gone from grandmother to mother to daughter, from mother to daughter. Being an involved dad, that's been around less time than Facebook. What am I going to do? I can't ask my dad for advice. He wasn't really that involved, and a lot of the techniques he did employ are no longer considered legal. I can be like, what would you do when we're melting down in the supermarket? He'd be like, wasn't an issue. Leave you in the car, crack a window. Job's done. So two boys. My oldest boy, Oscar, he's non-speaking autistic. Yeah, people don't always know how to react to that. Someone once said to me, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." You don't need to be sorry. Everybody is on their own unique parenting journey. I think having a kid is like getting a ticket to a unique experience. You don't know if you're going to end up at the FA Cup final watching them score the winning goal, or maybe you just end up in a courtroom listening to victim statements from the families of people they've killed. Either way, you just got to be there to support them, You'll always have a room at home, whether it's next weekend or in 15 to 20. You do what you love. There are upsides to having a child with special needs. One of them is that the government gives you money. It shouldn't make a difference, the money, but it kind of does. I see other people's 4-year-olds speaking in full sentences, and I do think to myself, you're not going to get much for that. Because when that £25 hits my bank account quarterly, I feel the pride I imagine a Victorian father would have felt watching his little urchin emerge sooty-faced from a chimney stack. He's making a contribution to the household. In the cost of living crisis, that's important. Because my other son, my youngest son, he's, I think, what they call neurotypical, but what I think of as 100% cost. It's like that bit. It's not without, he's, challenging in his own different way, and again, as a parent, I never really know what I'm doing. So a few weeks ago, I was called into his nursery, went to pick him up, and he said, we need to have a word with you about Archie. He's been hitting some of the other children. So I had to do some of my very best acting surprised. What? No, my gentle boy! I felt like a Premier League manager must feel after a player's been sent off and they have to say, honestly, he's not that kind of player. When deep down you know he's exactly that kind of player. It's actually a very big part of his game. Because I've seen him out there, in the playgrounds, and he's, reasonably fast with his hands, but I just assume, let the kids sort it out amongst themselves. One day he's going to do it to the wrong kid, and he'll learn his lesson that way. Because we all know that hitters are not top of the toddler food chain. Biters are. So when I was called back into the little back room at the nursery again, and this time they were a lot more apologetic, and he said, there's been another incident, and they showed me Archie's arm, and there was some bite marks in it. I thought, okay, there's an apex predator in the yellow butterfly room. Maybe this is going to make my life easier. But what I had not allowed for was the concept of intellectual contagion. Archie's a biter now. He's got the bite strength of a police Alsatian. He could rip the throat out of a live chicken. But a nice boy, a good boy. When you have kids, you do actually, certain things you kind of remember from your own childhood, things come back to you and you think, that was weird. Because I was out feeding the ducks with them the other day, and I remembered as a child being told, don't go near swans, because a swan will break your arm. Does anyone ever hear that? A few people remember that. And I was thinking back, I never heard the story of anyone getting their arm broken by a swan. What I do remember was the story of a boy in my school who went down to the canal one day and decided to take a piss on a swan. Now, if you are in the business of breaking arms and someone starts pissing on you, surely that's all the incentive you would need, but this swan did not break his arm. What it did do is bite his cock off. I think maybe that's what we should be telling to children. It's more scary. It's going to keep the behaviour in line. What else has been happening? I tell you, we had a thing in our house recently. A lot of Londoners here, so maybe someone's had this experience. My wife spotted a rat running through our house. Has anyone enjoyed the rodent delights of London? Yeah, a few, yeah. You probably don't want to own up to it. It makes you seem like your house is dirty. I could do it. But yeah, my wife's quite particular about not having disease-carrying vermin in the house. Which is a reasonable enough position, so I had to call out the rat man. And the rat man came to the door, and I'm not lying to you when I tell you this was the most rat-like human being I have ever seen in my life. He came in and he go, all right, you got a problem with the rats, have you? Well, let me take a look. And he kind of and he scurried. He scurried around, and then he pointed to a grate in the garden, and I swear he said, yeah, that's where we get in. Whose team is this guy on? I was concerned about it, and then he showed me how he put down a trap. He said, oh, this is a safe trap. Safe trap, right? Kids won't be able to get into the poison there. The rats will get in and that'll do for them. And I was thought, oh, okay. I was trying to make a bit of casual conversation. I said, do you have any kids? He said, oh yeah, hundreds of them. This is taking its own. This is weird. But I got chatting to him, and turns out, great guy. Solved the rat problem, Told me he's having a lot of problems with his wife. He's been divorced, and I felt bad for him, because that is a lot of kids to not get to see. But you move along. I tell you, something else that happened this last year that was a bit weird for me was, did anyone see a TV show, Baby Reindeer? Yeah, a few people saw it. It's a good show, generally considered a good show. For those who didn't see it, it's about a guy who has a kind of crazy stalker, and it's controversial because at the start of the show it said, this is a true story. But he said it's okay because we're very careful so you won't be able to find the woman who was involved. And then within 30 seconds, the people on Twitter said, there she is, that's her there. And you may have seen that she went on Piers Morgan, and everyone went, wow, she's maybe even crazier than the dramatization. But, we shouldn't have been able to find her, so now she's suing Netflix for 150 million. And she's probably going to get settled, she's going to get a few million, and that's pretty mental. But I don't really particularly care about any of that. What bothered me was that Richard Gadd made a show that he said, this is a true story, But he didn't call the main character Richard Gadd. He called the main character Donnie Dunn, which is quite a lot like my name. And at points of the show, the character goes by the name Tony Dunn, which is exactly my name. And the similarities don't stop there. The character is Scottish, check. Living in London, check. Stinking up the open mic comedy circuit, circa around 2010. Check, check, check. And then the character, like, it goes more extreme. The character's dad's name, Jerry Dunn. My dad's name. And his dad had a Jesuit Catholic education. My dad had a Jesuit Catholic education. His dad was sexually abused by priests. I've never had that conversation with my dad, and I have no intention of having it. That's not going to be fun. I'm not going to ask that question. I'd rather find out what I can and can't take to Picasso exhibitions. That's the thing. And normally, you'd want to finish a bit on a big laugh, but what I'd actually like to do is finish on an appeal. Are there any entertainment lawyers in? Please approach me in the break, because I want my 150 million. That'd be good. Okay, well, that's probably my time for this evening. You're going to have a great time in the second half with Darren. So have a great night. You're a great crowd. Good night.